Imagine the scene: a medieval battlefield. Iron rings on iron, swords bite into shields, arrows hiss through the air. War is a visceral, close-quarters struggle decided by the strength of arms, the courage of knights, and the height of stone walls. For millennia, this was the brutal, unchanging calculus of conflict. Then a whisper of change, born from an alchemist's dream in faraway China, began its journey, carrying with it a power that would not just alter battles, but shatter empires and reshape the very fabric of global power. In the dimly lit laboratories of 9th century Tang China, Taoist alchemists weren't seeking a weapon. They pursued a far grander prize, the elixir of immortality. They mixed sulfur, a substance known for its fiery nature, with saltpeter, a crystalline compound often found on cave walls, and various other ingredients, hoping to unlock the secrets of eternal life. Around the year 808, one particular recipe called for 6 parts sulfur, 6 parts saltpeter, and 1 part birthwort herb. What they stumbled upon was not life everlasting, but a volatile, unstable mixture. An early text, the Zhenyuan Miao Dao Yaolui from around 850, describes a terrifying incident. Alchemists combining sulfur, realgar, and saltpeter with honey saw it suddenly ignite. Smoke and flames result, so that their hands and faces have been burnt, and even the whole house where they were working burnt down. They called this potent discovery Huoyao, fire medicine, an ironic name, perhaps, for a substance whose destiny was so deeply intertwined with death. Initially, this fire medicine wasn't about explosive force. With saltpeter content often around only 50%, it was more of an aggressive incendiary. The first tentative steps into warfare came in 904 AD during the siege of Yuzhong. Southern Wu commander Zheng Fan, it's recorded, launched fire arrows and rudimentary bombs from machines, setting ablaze the city gates. These were shock weapons, designed to terrify and to burn, not yet to blast. But the seed of a revolution had been planted. The journey of this fire medicine from a Chinese curiosity to a world-altering force is a saga in itself. And a crucial, often unheralded protagonist in this spread was the Mongol Empire. As the Mongol horsemen thundered across Asia in the 13th century, they encountered these early gunpowder weapons in their campaigns against the Jin and Song dynasties. Quick to recognize an advantage, they incorporated gunpowder artisans and technology into their formidable war machine. Through their vast conquests, the Mongols became the unintentional couriers, carrying the secrets of Huoyao westward, along the Silk Road, and into the workshops of Arab engineers and the battlefields of the Middle East. Arab scholars and military men were quick to refine the recipes. They improved the purification of saltpeter, a critical step to increasing its explosive yield. They experimented with new forms of delivery, from handheld fire lances, essentially bamboo tubes packed with gunpowder, to early forms of cannon. And as these more potent versions of gunpowder reached the fringes of Europe through conflicts in Iberia and trade with the Levant, the continent stood on the precipice of a military transformation, unlike any seen before. For centuries, European warfare had been dominated by the mounted knight and the seemingly impregnable stone castle. Sieges were long, drawn-out affairs, often decided by starvation or treachery rather than direct assault. But gunpowder was about to rewrite all the rules. The year is 1453. The ancient, legendary Theodosian walls of Constantinople, which had repelled attackers for over 1,000 years, faced a new kind of threat. Sultan Mehmed II of the Ottoman Empire, armed with massive bronze bombards, some so large they could fire stone balls weighing over half a ton, relentlessly pounded the city's defenses. Day after day, the monstrous cannons roared, each blast a death knell for the old ways of war. When the walls finally crumbled, it wasn't just the end of the Byzantine Empire. It was a deafening announcement that gunpowder artillery had arrived, and no stone fortress, however mighty, was truly safe anymore. The impact on the battlefield was profound. The heavily armored knight, the apex predator of medieval combat, found his expensive plate and martial prowess increasingly vulnerable to a simple lead ball fired from an arquebus. A peasant with minimal training could now fell a nobleman from a distance. This wasn't quite the democratization of warfare, but it certainly shifted the social dynamics of the battlefield. Infantry tactics evolved rapidly. Dense formations of pikemen were needed to protect the slow-reloading arquebusiers, leading to the famed pike and shot formations that would dominate European battlefields for centuries. Engagement ranges stretched, and the sheer noise, smoke, and concussive force of firearms added a new layer of psychological terror to combat. And the revolution wasn't confined to land. Imagine the traditional naval battle. Ships grappling, soldiers swarming onto enemy decks for brutal hand-to-hand combat. Gunpowder blew that picture apart. Mounting cannons on ships transformed naval warfare. Broadside volleys could cripple or sink an enemy vessel from afar. This new naval artillery allowed European powers, in particular, to project their influence across the globe. Mighty carracks and galleons, bristling with cannons, became the instruments of exploration, trade, and, ominously, colonization. The ability to dominate the seas with gunpowder gave nations like Portugal, Spain, England, and the Netherlands an unprecedented global reach. As cannons grew more powerful, the old high-walled castles became death traps. But human ingenuity is a relentless force. In response to the artillery threat, a new style of fortification emerged, the bastion fort, or trace Italian. These were masterpieces of geometric engineering, low-slung, angled walls designed to deflect cannonballs with protruding bastions that created interlocking fields of fire, eliminating blind spots. Engineers like an Italian named Sangallo and later the Marquis de Vauban in France perfected these designs. Vauban's star-shaped fortresses became the standard, complex, and costly structures that turned sieges into intricate, deadly chess matches of trenches, tunnels, and artillery duels. An arms race in stone and iron was well underway. The power of gunpowder didn't just reshape battlefields and fortresses, it reconfigured the very structure of states and societies. Manufacturing cannons, producing gunpowder in vast quantities, and maintaining standing armies equipped with firearms was an enormously expensive undertaking. Feudal lords, with their localized power and resources, simply couldn't compete. This new military reality accelerated the centralization of power in the hands of monarchs and emerging nation-states. Only a strong central government could afford the infrastructure, the foundries, the arsenals, and the professional armies required in this new age of warfare. This led directly to the rise of what historians call the gunpowder empires. In the East, the Ottoman Empire, Safavid Persia, and Mughal India all used gunpowder weapons, particularly artillery and firearms wielded by elite corps like the Ottoman Janissaries, to carve out and maintain vast, centralized territories. Their cannons battered down the walls of rival cities, and their musket-bearing armies quelled rebellions and expanded their frontiers. In Europe, the same dynamic was at play. Centralized kingdoms, having consolidated power at the expense of the nobility, now possessed the means to project force far beyond their borders. And project it they did. Armed with superior gunpowder weaponry, particularly effective naval cannons, European powers embarked on an age of exploration that quickly morphed into an age of colonial expansion. The technological edge provided by gunpowder was a key factor in the subjugation of populations and the establishment of vast colonial empires in the Americas, Africa, and Asia. Conflicts that were once regional skirmishes now had the potential to become global contests for resources and dominance. The demand for the ingredients of gunpowder, saltpeter, sulfur, charcoal, and for the metals to make cannons and guns spurred new industries and trade routes. Saltpeter, in particular, became a strategic resource of immense value, with states going to great lengths to secure reliable supplies, sometimes even regulating the collection of nitrogen-rich earth from stables and dovecotes. So, what began as an alchemist's quest for eternal life in 9th century China, an accidental discovery of fire medicine, unleashed a chain reaction that fundamentally altered the human experience of war and power. It was a slow burn at first, a gradual refinement of recipes and techniques, a creeping expansion across continents. But once its potential was truly unlocked, gunpowder tore through the existing military and political order with explosive force. It toppled ancient walls and dynasties, elevated new empires, and laid the groundwork for the globalized world we know today. It shifted the balance of power on the battlefield, making the common soldier a more potent force and rendering the knightly warrior increasingly obsolete. It fueled an arms race that continues in different forms to this very day, a constant cycle of offensive innovation and defensive adaptation. The principles of projectile warfare, the reliance on firepower, the state's control over the most powerful armaments, these are all legacies of the gunpowder revolution. From the first fire lances of the Song dynasty to the thundering bombards that breached the walls of Constantinople, from the pike-and-shot squares of European battlefields to the cannon-armed galleons that charted the world's oceans, gunpowder was the catalyst. It didn't just change how wars were fought. It changed who fought them, who could afford to fight them, and ultimately, who held the reins of power. The echo of that first accidental explosion in an alchemist's workshop still reverberates, a testament to how a single discovery can irrevocably alter the destiny of humankind.